Are we waiting for more people or okay. Yeah, excuse me.
All right, no,
Thanks,
we're good to go.
Patrick.
Thanks, Patrick. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Inner Wellness eight-part series, part three, Knowing Your Feelings. We are live on Big Goose Radio as well, so thank you to our participants who are watching through that. And this is also recorded, and you can always go back and you watch the videos, check out some of the stuff, and I'll throw cheat sheets and kind of the summary for today's show on Big Goose Radio, and we should have it as well here for our Zoom participants. But before we begin and I pass it over, just would like to thank our sponsors who make this event happen. So this is sponsored by Shoreline Community College and the WAVES program, worthy of achievement, validation, empowerment, and success for Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. This is also sponsored by Big Oos Foundation, is a local nonprofit committed to building vibrant communities through youth development, arts and culture, music and entertainment, radio, sports, and business. And our two public health departments have leaned in to allow Pacific Islander and Asian communities to talk about mental health. So out of the Office of Equity and Community Partnerships at King County, and our friends over there at Tacoma Pierce County Public Health. This is also a series building up to our 2024 Oceania Youth Health Summit, where we gathered a bunch of youth and young professionals to talk about the most pressing issues for their community. And mental health was one of the big key ones. So that event is still happening on May 24th at King County Aquatic Center. There's a flyer that I will post in the Facebook chat as well. And yeah, we're pretty excited about this. And again, these series really helps us talk about these conversations, which are taboo to our community. The other three topics that we're touching on at the summit is career readiness, cultural appreciation, and environmental health, kind of how we're connected to the land. But with that, recentering ourselves and focusing on this awesome topic. Again, as I've mentioned, I've done multiple series with Sala and Scarlett, who are amazing at allowing our, Pacific Islander communities to tap into mental health resources. And Know Your Feelings is the best one because they have this awesome feelings wheel. So anytime they ask me, how you doing? I know they're authentically asking me how I'm doing, right? Not the narrative of, I'm good. So with that, I'll pass it off to Sala and Scarlett. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Celie. Thank you for just introducing our sponsors and giving some time and space for all of our amazing community sponsors that are able to make this time and this space available and accessible for our community. So thank you all so much for allowing Scarlett and I to be here and to do this work. Well, good evening, everyone. It's so good to be here again. Scarlett and I enjoy these community conversations. I'm going to introduce myself and then I'm going to pass it over for my amazing colleague Scarlett to be able to introduce herself, and then she's going to kick us off into tonight's conversation on Know Your Feelings. So my name is Sala Afalava. I am a licensed mental health therapist here in Washington. I see clients out of my private practice and then also collaborate a lot with the different community partners to be able to do classes like this, which I really, really enjoy. And so again, tonight is, I say this in all the classes, but truly, like, Know Your Feelings is one of the most basic conversation that we offer to our community. And I say basic not in the sense that it's very simple, but basic in the sense that it's foundational. When it comes to everything with mental health, it really is about being able to express or even know about how it is that we're feeling, what we're thinking about, and how we're able to understand ourselves in the context of, like, maybe you as an individual, but also with other people as well as you communicate with them. So in order for you to be able to do all of those things, the basic concept that we need to understand is being able to put some words to how we are feeling. And so I am Samoan. And Scarlett is Samoan, and most of the community that we serve is Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders. And our communities are just not as, we don't have some of the language, or the words to be able to express how we feel. So tonight, when Scarlett takes us through this amazing conversation on understanding our feelings, it really is, when we say basic, like, it's foundational, because if you understand how you feel, the better you will be in being able to just express yourself to other people, and then be able to communicate in a way that gets your needs across to other people. So Scarlett does an amazing job in breaking this conversation down. As we continue to go on to tonight's conversation, if you're here for the very first time, welcome. It's so good to see you. You could be anywhere else, but you choose to be here. So thank you for honoring yourself and taking the time to invest in yourself in learning about this stuff with us and having the conversation. So with that said, just know that if you have any questions, Scarlett and I if it's just Scarlett and I, we will talk for hours. Okay. So we don't want to do that. We're very open with, if you have questions on the spot, ask us on the spot. If you have, anything that maybe you want us to kind of clarify, let us know. If you're not comfortable, let us know in the chat. Send Celie and I a message on the chat. Let us know. You can type down your questions. We will read it off if you're not comfortable sharing, but we just want you to engage with us. I don't think there's a lot of opportunities for people in our community to be able to get this information unless you're sitting across from a therapist in therapy and you're paying tons of money to be able to be in that place. Okay, so that's why we make ourselves available to our community and just say, hey, if you have any questions, let us know. Okay, so with that being said, I am going to pass it over to my amazing colleague Scarlett so she can kick us off on this conversation on Know Your Feelings.
Yay! Oh, thank you, sis. I greatly appreciate it. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are at in the world. Thank you for being a part of tonight's community conversation. It is truly a joy and an honor to be doing these community conversations to help impact our community in a different way. Just like Sala said, you don't really get this information unless you are sitting in a therapist's office or paying for a class. And we feel so honored and humbled that we have sponsors to help put this on for our community. A little housekeeping notes, please keep your questions and stories relevant to tonight's community conversation. The other house note is that you will, though we break things all the way down, you will see how Sal and I break it down. Please do not teach this because this is a lot of work that Sal and I have done and we broke it down so that our community can receive what we teach. So with that being said, my name is Scarlett Ekiroma. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a boundaries coach. I've been in this field for over a decade, and I currently work through my private practice, Elevate Healing. Not only do I see individual clients, but I get to do this amazing community work, community classes with Sala, and it's super exciting because it's continuing to expand and we really appreciate that our community is wanting this information. But again, like Sala said, if you have any questions, even if you're on Facebook, please put it in the chat there. If you're in the Zoom room, please put it in the chat there and we will definitely answer it. We will definitely have some engagement questions so that we can continue to, again, grow this conversation. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and get myself set up and then we will go from there.
And as Scarlett is doing that, oh yeah, go ahead, Celie.
No, I think we were going to address the same thing, but go ahead.
Are you talking about like being streamed live?
Yeah, and we do, Patrick, record these. We have a YouTube page that King County is dedicated to. It has our last two that we've done with Sal and Scarlett, and this is just our spring series 2024. But I'll send you those links after the meeting.
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, all of these classes are streamed online, like I said, like Celie said, on YouTube and on Facebook. I think one is on UCE Radio. So that being said, know your feelings. I absolutely love talking about feelings. I know it is unheard of for a Pacific Islander to talk about feelings because It's not really prevalent. It's not really prevalent and prominent within our communities. But this is why we wanted to have this conversation, because what Sal and I would see in our practice is that our community or individuals who would come see us individually, that they truly had challenges expressing or identifying their feelings. A lot of times, what we know is, in particular here in the United States, is that emotional intelligence is really not taught after a certain grade. So, for example, if I go back, feelings are not really taught right after probably first grade or second grade, and that's like 7 or 8 years old, because it doesn't really address the complex feelings that we feel as we continue to grow. So this is our agenda for tonight. Really simple. So the first part, we're going to talk about the brain and the body and how it impacts our feelings. In our second section, we're going to talk all things feelings. Everything we do, we always bring the cultural aspect into it, and we always want to have a cultural conversation, because yet though our culture is a big part of who we are, we always want to honor that, but we also have to talk about how this also impacts in both positive and negative ways as well. Then we're talking about the importance of feelings, the reasons why it's important to identify and share. Then I'm gonna share a little bit of a little short study in regards to the number 34,000. Then we're gonna talk about the layer of feelings and how I teach my clients about how to identify your feelings. And then we're going to share some tips with you all. So that being said, we're going to watch this short video. One of the things Sal and I always like to do is we always want to give psychoeducation to our community about actually what happens within your body when, in particular, whatever conversation that we're doing. So in this sense, we're going to talk about how the emotions impact your brain. So again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, and we'll have a short conversation about it after the video is done.
When we hear the word emotion, most of us think of love, hate, happiness, or fear. Those strong feelings we experience throughout life. Our emotions are the driving force behind many of our behaviors, helpful and unhelpful. Just where do our emotions come from? Our brain is wired to look for threats or rewards. If one is detected, the feeling region of the brain alerts us through the release of chemical messages. Emotions are the effect of these chemical messages traveling from our brain through the body. When our brain detects a potential threat, our brain releases the stress hormones adrenaline and cortisol, which prepare us for a fight or flight response. When we detect or experience something rewarding, such as someone doing something nice for you, our brain releases dopamine, oxytocin, or serotonin. These are the chemicals that make us feel good and motivate us to continue on the task or behavior. In these instances, the feeling region of the brain kicks in before the thinking part. Sometimes the reactions of the feeling brain are so strong that it dominates our behaviors, and we're unable to think rationally in the moment. Our emotions hijack our brain. While many of our emotional responses happen subconsciously, our thinking can influence our emotions, and sometimes this can be unhelpful. Just thinking about something threatening can trigger an emotional response. This is where we can manage our emotions with conscious thinking. Our emotions play a powerful role in the way we experience the world. Understanding and regulating our emotions through our thoughts and behaviors can help us take greater control of our brain and achieve our goals.
You know, I always enjoy just truly learning about the body, because, you know, it's just one of the coolest things, honestly, around, just to know, because a lot of times we don't really sit with like what's happening or what's going on inside of us. And so I love this short video because it talks about what truly happens to your brain, in particularly if we're talking about negative feelings, how it truly affects your brain and your body. So Sala, is there anything you wanted to add to that video? Anything you wanted to share?
Mhm. Yeah, just that, like I said, it's such a simple video, but the reason why Scarlett and I always want to make sure that we, also we're not just giving information about, your feelings and we're going to identify it, but like it lets you know that like it's all connected, like how you're feeling, like it does impact you physically, because there's parts of your body, like whenever we're taking in information, there's that like when like the sensor, our senses, right? Like your eyes, what you see, what you smell, what you taste, when you feel, what you hear, like those are all like senses. This is how information gets into our brain, right? And so when those things come in, like it really goes from like different regions of our brain, and it gets to that part of our brain that's all about the emotions, you know, when it was talking about. And oftentimes it's so important, because if you understand like what this video was talking about, you know, how your brain and your body physically is all connected to how you feel, it gives you a better understanding that, like, because sometimes people feel like they can't control how they, you know, feel about things. Like, yeah, you can. You can. And so, but a lot of people don't know that. They just feel like, oh, I just, you know, do this and I feel this. Like, no, it's because like, what were you seeing? What were you like, you know, taking in that sort of, you know, kind of made that dominoes, like, you know, effect on you in taking all that information and then feeling the way that you feel. So all of it is connected, is pretty much the point that I just want to, you know, take away from this video. So it's important to know that all of it is connected to our feelings as we continue to learn more about it, as Scarlett is going to talk about it.
For sure. Does anybody have any questions or any comments about the video before we head on forward? Just want to make sure I give space. And then Celie, let me know if anything's in the Facebook chat as well.
Okay, we'll do. We're good here though.
Okay. We good? Okay. All right. So it's one of my favorite slides, this next slide. No, not that. So feelings and culture. I love talking about culture, and I love talking about just all of who we are, because like I said, a lot of our identity is our cultural roots. And so, but we also, like I said, we're always going to talk about the impact of it. So tonight's first engagement question is, how are feelings viewed within your culture and family? And the second part of that question is, what would happen if you shared your feelings? If you want to unmute, you can unmute if you're in the Zoom room. If you want to put it in the chat, you can do that as well.
It's very dominant culture centered, right? How I grew up, and you know, you get made fun of. Kind of like the video we played last week with the TikToker guy. Instead of taking your like comments and stuff seriously, it's one big joke. But we are a very humorous culture, right? So we poke fun at things, but then that causes people never to share, right? So
yeah,
my perspective.
That's legit. I mean, I think that's the thing, like, you know, what Salah mentioned last week is this, like, oftentimes we turn to joking because we're uncomfortable we're either uncomfortable or we don't know what to say or what the feelings are. It's that language piece that's missing. So of course, if I didn't know anything about feelings, if somebody came to me, you know, I'm feeling sad and depressed, my immediacy is to go to jokes because I want them to feel better. But sometimes it's okay to sit with those feelings of sadness. So Salah, what's your feedback on the question?
Mm-hmm. Before I do, I want to share what Millie has shared on the chat. She said, not being validated,
Ooh.
Brushing it off. How are feelings viewed within your culture and family? So not being validated, yes, absolutely. And then just brushing it off. So that's like minimizing it. And that goes into what Scarlett was talking about. Like sometimes it's like, maybe the adults in our lives at that moment, you know, they don't know how to deal with feelings, or what is feelings. We don't talk about feelings. It's funny, I was having a conversation with one of my best friends this past week, and you know, just talking about how sometimes like our kids these days, like our kids, as we both have teenagers, and so how our kids these days, you know, they're kind of like, you know, we want you to say that, you know, you love us. You know, they're very verbal sometimes. And so me and her were cracking up and we were laughing because we're like, man, when we were growing up, and it's like we both grew up in Samoa, you know, went to school and everything. in Samoa. So we grew up in Samoa. And we're like, man, our parents never said I love you until we left to go to the military. You know, it's like that was like saying goodbye at the airport. Yeah, love you.
Yeah.
You know, so but it looked different, you know, so they may not have been verbal in expressing how they feel, right? Because like it wasn't really it's not really a thing in our communities. But I think sometimes it's different because for our communities it's more so in action, you know. So sometimes it could be that how they feel is expressed through like, oh, did you eat? Are you hungry? You know, and that's like, in a way, that's like communicating, I love you, you know, like making sure your kids are fed, making sure, you know, they, you know, that they're taken care of. And sometimes that's what it is. It's more so nonverbal, you know. So it was just a interesting, conversation I had with my friend. So, but yeah, it goes back to this question of like, how is it viewed? It's like, we didn't really talk about how we feel about things. Or even more so, because like, even if you're, and especially if you're a kid, you know, if you're like a teenager, if you're like a little kid, it's like, it's more of a shh, be quiet, go in the back, you know, the adults are talking, you know. So is that very dismissive, very like, and so what was the internal message that maybe a kid like me was getting at that point could be like, okay, like my opinion, you know, my voice doesn't really matter in this context. So but yeah, that's just how it was viewed in my experience. Also, Millie, I'm gonna read Millie's comment.
Go ahead.
She said, now that I'm older, I try to validate my younger siblings' feelings when they vent. Yes, because when I try and talk about my feelings, it wasn't an option. So I turned to other things to validate my feelings. And now I make it a point to listen and make sure my younger family members are heard and validated. Amen. Yes, that's so true. Yeah.
Good.
Thanks
No, I
for
love it.
sharing, Millie.
Thanks, Millie. I think in regards to how feelings was viewed, because how I grew up, though I was born in American Samoa, I grew up in the South. I grew up in Florida. And so when it came to talking about feelings just within the cultural context within my family, it's very similar to Sala. It wasn't verbalized often a lot, but the one thing that I always appreciated was when my father would, again, did you eat? So that was how I knew that he loved us, and then he loved cooking for us. And the other part I recall was that he would always write us birthday cards, and he would always say, I love you. And that's how he would express himself in there. It was hard. It was definitely different for anybody, I think, at that time to talk about feelings out loud. And I think part of it is that, you know, when it came to it, as I've gotten older, it's just like a lot of times we just don't give ourselves permission to really talk about it, because it's like, again, it's almost like that taboo, like Celie was saying earlier, it's like you'll get made fun of, and nobody ever wants to get made fun of because, you know, because what that essentially creates is emotional unsafe. It just makes it emotionally unsafe. So I think in regards to what happened if I particularly shared, it wasn't met with gratefully, because I did not know how to healthily express my emotions as a kid and as a teen growing up. But as I continue to learn the skills, like if I'm experiencing something negative, I could talk about it to where I can have a conversation and not go to immediate anger, and then a bunch of physical things happened on my end. So, and we'll talk about that on our next class, what's underneath your anger. So, Sally, did you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to add too, because I think it's always good to like share like our experiences and our cultural experience in that context. And when it comes to feelings, just because like one thing that the reason why Scarlett and I also wanted to have this feeling conversation is because Scarlett and I see a lot of our community member, also like, you know, our young people that are just struggling with their mental health. And a lot of the time what we start off with is just teaching them or giving them the tools to be able to identify how they feel it's a start. Like, this is where we start with, because there's sometimes they are experiencing so much and they're holding on to so much, and it's causing depression, it's causing severe anxiety, it is causing all kinds of mental health stuff, but then they don't know how to express it to us. They don't know how to tell us. They don't have the words to even, share those things with us. So most of like what we do is we start off with like, here's the feelings wheel, here's, giving them some words to be able to like, okay, let's start, unraveling some of those things that you've been holding on to. But it starts with this, because it's like teaching them and sharing with them how to put words to what they're feeling. Because like I said, from all of our experiences that we shared, it's not really something that, that we talk about a lot. So just wanted to add to that piece.
No, and I love that you said that, because it's not just the teens as well. Like, every adult who I see, that is the one of the first things that I do is teach them emotional intelligence. Like, we talk about, I literally pull out the feelings wheel, and I said, because what's interesting is just like, like I said, we're not really taught the feelings of outside of mad, sad, hungry, lonely, tired. That's typically what we learn. But then when we start doing the emotional intelligence part, then that's when we talk about, well, are you dissatisfied? Are you lonely? Are you actually, are you feeling dismissed? So those are the different types of feelings that we are able to identify in that space. So Celie, did you have a question? I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add to that and also read Patrick's comment in the chat. Our culture expresses toughness. And I can relate to that a lot, right? As you're talking about the adults, because I remember during COVID time when we were trying to really get community vaccinated, self-aware, one of my male colleagues actually said, I just really need a big cry. I was like, brother, you better go do some damn push-ups or something. What you mean a big cry? Like, internalize that, suck it, stuff it. I said, at some point, right, it'll come out. But working with you guys, right, the last couple of years, it's like you've given us permission to say, man, I'm here for that. I feel that. Although it's still tough, right? Because I'm one of the male leaders in my Samoan community, and it's difficult because I got a lot of young nephews who look up to me, right? But it's normalizing this. Man, it's all right to feel that. It's okay that you're sad and depressed, and I promise we won't make fun of you right now at this moment. But please share your thoughts with us, right? So I can really kind of relate to what Patrick was saying, is just males have a role, but actually, there is a feminine side we need to tap into. Not saying that all women are emotionally feeling most of the time. It's just my experiences. They share a lot of feelings, whereas in men, we hide it, or just kind of our male side. But yeah, just wanted to add that.
No, I love that. I mean, I love that you said that, Patrick. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's the thing about when it talks about, when we're talking about being tough, and that's our like next point, is in regards to when it comes to talking about sharing feelings or even sharing tears, it's often looked at as a sign of weakness, versus actually it's a huge strength. If you actually think about sharing your feelings and actually sharing your tears to somebody, it takes so much bravery, strength, and courage to do that, rather than how we look at it. It was just like, oh man, that's just really weak. Why you gotta share all that? I mean, but it's just like, if I actually sat and thought about it, like for in order for me to share, guys, when I started healthily sharing my feelings, and I'm just like, I gotta figure out, for me, it was like, I gotta figure out the words and I have to share it, because I think a lot of times, especially for our community and our culture, it's just like we feel like we have to do it on our own, and we don't. No, if we were supposed to do it on our own, no one else would be here on this earth. Infants wouldn't need our guidance. We wouldn't have friendships. That's doing it alone. So, but again, everything that we are made to do life with somebody, with friends, with people who truly, truly support us. So again, this whole notion of like, I gotta suck it up, I gotta do it on my own, that's part of the whole, like, where I put on here, is just like, who came up with these ideas of why we have to continue that? And it's just like, well, if that doesn't fit me, why am I continuing that idea? What's the reason I continue it? And so that's one of the challenges that I've done for myself. And I'm like, well, that doesn't apply to me anymore. So what actually does work for me? And that's something I have to sit with. I think in regards to the point of the positive and negative feelings, just like we give a space to our positive feelings, like, man, we get so excited when we want to share something. It's like, oh, I got to share this, share this, share this. It's the same way that how we have to look at our negative feelings and sharing in the same manner. Just how because we always give our positive feelings to face, because of course, it feels good. We want other people to feel good, but we also have to give those negative feelings a space sometime too. Saul, you want to add anything before I go forward?
Yes, I think Patrick had a question. He said, how do we teach that message to the community?
I think part of that is coming to these types of conversations, because because it's such a delicate, I'll just say it like this, because it's such a delicate conversation, because we're just talking about, this is just an introduction to talking about how to identify your feelings. And so the thing I would say, because like the one thing that, like, I'll give an example. When Sala and I taught this, we talked about a little bit of our feelings class to our Samoan elders. They came with a list, like a list of questions. And the great thing about it is, because Sala and I have done this for so long, because between the both of us, we have over 2 decades of experience, we're able to answer it for them, answer it in a way so that they can understand and they can receive. Now, we've had the same conversation with the teens. It's a different conversation. So we're able to break it down to where they can understand for them. So I would definitely say having them come to like these types of conversation, or sharing this this link as well, Patrick, is what I would say, like the replay. And then telling them, like, Sal and I we are always available to our community to answer questions. And so it's just like, just send us your questions and we'll answer that. Is that helpful? Is that helpful, Patrick?
Well, everything that's been said so far, I mean, it's right on the dot. Thank you guys for putting this together. This is really fantastic. I work at Bremerton High School, and I see this every day. I retired from King County Juvenile Justice, and now I do volunteer work, because I want to give back to the community. And everything that's been said, and that's the clash that we have from the old school to the new school, if you will. They want to, because it's really hard to break the traditions of how our parents and their parents before them taught, because especially because mental health was mentioned in the conversation, and it is true. Our kids are not going through so much that we're not listening, because that's not how we were brought up, right? So we look at these issues and sort of like, I don't want to use the word ignored, but that seems what it is when it comes to dealing with mental health. So it's a very great conversation, very great topic. But I think this is a start of a greater impact, in my opinion, that would really, because it always it comes first level. Because when we talk about these things, oh, I'm sorry. If you don't speak Samoan, I apologize, because I'm assuming that everybody on the call is Samoan. So forgive me. But because but then how can we like reach the old and the new, so that because even if they get a call from the school, because whanonga or leuska, that kind of thing. But then, and then that really is a start of trickle down of that child, because they don't feel supported. They think that, oh, I'm not worthy standing up for myself, or whatever the case may be. So, but yeah, I am glad that I found you guys, and now I think for me the next step is to continue the conversation and then bring your expertise to our side, because all for permitted. So I used to work for King County, but I don't anymore. But I can't say anything bad about King County. Silly. Stay where you at,
For sure.
But anyways, yeah. So hopefully that we can continue to collaborate and build the group to a point where I think, because right now I can tell you that the ole okahokamiki, because Kamikile for Guam and Samoa, not just Samoa, but in Guam and other island nations, they get here 2 weeks later, they want to be Meuli, they want to be, gang members and stuff like that. That's how fast the culture can influence our kids. But then at the same time, it forward. So then that kind of thing, yeah, friction, because right now, High School, they all say the same thing, but they just don't feel supported from the community. So that's why, when I retired from King County, I decided to come out and establish the nonprofit, so that we can be in the schools, kind of giving the same services that I'm not a licensed therapist, but 25 years dealing with knuckleheads, I think I know something a little about how to deal with juveniles. So anyways, but that's my story. But like I said, I really appreciate you guys, what you guys are doing, and the platform is fantastic. Sili Fafkailava ya Eluso for letting us know. I didn't invite the rest of my staff because I didn't know what this was all about. So the next training, when you send me the link, I'll make sure everybody's included, so that way, we can collaborate and try to figure out how to best serve our kids, especially, and then the community at large. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, Patrick. I'll reach out to you offline, but one of the things, not to interrupt Scarlett, but is I think men like you and I normalizing this idea, right? Meeting Sal and Scarlett, right? They're obviously amazing Samoan therapists, amazing Pacific Islander therapists, right? But if males actually talk about it, it's weird, right? But I've learned from those two that it's okay to talk about it. But that's, I feel like, our first step as males in this culture. But I feel like it relates to our Asian family members as well, where like the men, we have to be tough. But you can thank Sal and Scarlett for that. So they've really gotten feelings out there. It's scary, right? It's scary too, though. But I just want to throw that out there. Sorry, back to you, Scarlett.
No, thank you. And so, and Seeley will confirm, like, we don't let him get away with the I'm good. When we ask him what he's doing, we're like, keep going. We'll say that to him. I think in regards to when we're talking about, just like, Seeley and Patrick, as you were saying, when we're talking about the toughness, and, there's nothing wrong with being tough. It's just, it can't be applied every single space. Because a lot of what we are talking about in regards to this survival is we're really taught, a lot of what we are doing is survivalistic skills. Let's just get through the next one. Let's just get through the next one. Let's just keep, but what ends up happening is you're really not addressing anything, and it just continues to build up. And so because the reality is when you start sharing about what's going on with you, it actually lessens the pain and provides relief. And then I think the other thing, what Sala and I know is that when you actually start sharing what's going on, it actually impacts your immune system. It makes you feel better. It makes you sleep better. Your mood is better. Your immune system is strengthened. So those are the things that are important, of why we say it's important to share what is going on. And then next is, our culture a lot of time is like what Sala and I were talking about a little bit earlier, was be quiet, stay silent. We always have, one of the questions that I always ask my client, and Sala does the same thing as well, is what is the cost of being silent? There are too many things that happen across our AA and HPI communities of silence. And part of what we'll talk about is how to truly create an emotional safe space and really identify how to start effectively identifying feelings. Sala, anything you wanted to add before we go forward?
There's just so much to unpack with, even with what Patrick was sharing with everything, but everything that you said, Patrick, with that disconnect between the generation here that grew up here and then their parents. Scarlett and I have been really trying to bridge that gap and being able to not only do this work, but it's to do it intergenerationally. So to where we are able to, like she said earlier, like we met with the elders, some of the elders in our communities that go to a different nonprofit, and they go there for activities, and we did we introduced this concept to them. And we met with, the young people, the youth, and, different churches allowed us to come in and be able to share the same information and teaching the youth. And it's one of those things where it's like everything that you said is absolutely everything that they said. The parents are trying to figure out why their kids aren't listening, why they're being disrespectful, why they are not honoring culture. And there's such a disconnect there. And then the kids are like, the parents are not listening to us. They don't want to hear it. They're very traditional. And so then that's where we see sort of that conflict in our families, in our communities. But like Scarlett mentioned earlier, these community conversation is an excellent way to start, just to be able to share the information. Or even if you're wanting to host us, if your organization want to host us and we come out and do the same work that we do here for your community, wherever you serve, we'd be honored to do that as well.
For sure. And you know what this brought back a story, Sal. Remember, I don't know if you remember this, but we did the boundaries class with the teens, and we were sharing, of course, our stories. And one of the teens, I'll never forget, she goes, I didn't think adults went through anything. And it's so interesting because we are not sharing with our kids our own experiences, because of course it's that toughness that they only see. And so when the teenage girl said that, I just was just like, oh girl, we go through a lot. And so, but what was really cool, it made her feel like she wanted to open up and felt safe to open up in front of an adult and her teen and the teen group. So again, this is why it's always important to share with our kids or whoever we are part of. Like, we do go through challenges, and not saying you have to give details, but here's how I handled this. This is some things that I did, and then you can decide what you want to do with that. So that being said, we're going to keep it moving forward. This is another short video that we're going to talk, that is going to express on the importance of why we need to feel heard, and then we will continue on the conversation.
One of our deepest longings, deeper than we even perhaps recognize day to day, is that other people should acknowledge certain of our feelings. We want that at key moments our sufferings should be understood, our anxieties noticed, and our sadness lent legitimacy. We don't want others necessarily to agree with all our feelings, but what we crave is that they at least validate them. When we are furious, we want another person to say, I can see that you've been driven to distraction. It must feel very chaotic for you inside right now. When we're sad, we want someone to say, I know you're unusually down, and I understand the reasons why. And when we can't take it all anymore, we want someone gently to utter, it's been too much for you, hasn't it? I recognize that so well. Of course it has. It all sounds desperately simple, and in a way it is. And yet how little of this emotional nectar of acknowledgement we ever in fact receive or gift to one another. The habit of not having one's feelings properly acknowledged begins in childhood. Parents, even the most loving ones, frequently stumble in this domain. It's not that they don't theoretically care intensely for their children. It's that they don't appreciate that true care involves regularly reflecting a child's moods back to him or her, rather than subtly pushing the moods away or denying that they exist. Here are some typical unacknowledging parent-child exchanges. I'm feeling sad. Don't be silly, you can't be. It's the holidays. I'm really worried. Darling, now that's ridiculous. There's just nothing to be scared of here. I wish there wasn't any school ever. Don't be so silly. You know we have to leave the house by 8 o'clock in the morning. How different things might go, and what a different sort of adult the child would have a chance to grow into if such dialogues were only slightly tweaked. If, for example, the parent could say, it's weird, isn't it, how it's possible to be sad at the oddest of times, even on a lovely beach holiday? Or, I can see you're scared. That wind really is fierce out there. Or, it must be really horrible having double maths all morning, especially after such a nice weekend. There is one big reason why we don't acknowledge as we might. Fear. The feelings we push away are all in some shape or other emotionally inconvenient or troubling or upsetting. We love our child so much we don't want to imagine that they might be sad or worried, lost or having a terribly difficult time at school. Furthermore, we may operate with a background view that acknowledging a difficult feeling will make it far worse than it actually is. It will mean fostering it unduly or giving way to it entirely. We fear that if we give a bit of unbiased mirroring to our child, we might be encouraging them to grow cataclysmically depressive, unfeasibly timid, or manically resistant to authority. What we're missing is that most of us, once we've been heard, become far less rather than far more inclined to insist on the feelings we're beset by. The angry person gets less rather than more enraged once the depth of their frustration has been recognized. The rebellious child grows more, not less inclined to buckle down and do their homework once their feelings that they want to burn the school down, break the headmaster's glasses and abscond to a desert island have been listened to and identified with for maybe no more than 55 seconds. Feelings get less strong, not more tyrannous, as soon as they've been given an airing. We become bullies when no one's listened, never because they've listened too much. The problem of unacknowledged feelings doesn't sadly end with childhood. Couples routinely put each other through the same mill. For example, sometimes I feel that you don't listen. That has to be rubbish. I put so much work into this relationship. I'm worried I might be fired. That's not possible. You work so hard. All the way to the divorce courts or an affair. The good news is that an enormous uplift in mood is available right now with very little effort, if we simply learn to change the way that we typically respond to the I statements of those who matter to us. We only need to play their feelings back to them, even the potentially awkward feelings, for a few moments using certain magical phrases. I can hear that you must be feeling so. I can understand completely that. Such phrases can change the course of lives. Crucially, we don't need to be listened to by everyone. We can bear an awful lot of unacknowledged feelings when just a few people, some of them in our childhood, and ideally one of them now in our bedroom and another in our friendship circle, every now and then plays us back to us. The ranter, the person animated by a rigid desire that everyone should listen to them, hasn't, of course, been overindulged. They're just playing out the frightening consequences of never having been heard when it mattered. There is almost no end to what we may be ready to do for those who pay us that immense, psychologically redemptive honor of once in a while acknowledging what we're actually feeling, however momentarily odd, melancholy, or inconvenient it might be.
Our emotional first aid.
Any comments? Any feedback? Solid, you want to add anything?
I think my always one of my main takeaways from this video is just the acknowledgement piece, especially like in most of our own cultural experiences about, you know, how we grew up. You know, a lot of it is whenever we try to share how we feel with the adults in our lives, it's either it gets dismissed or minimized, or, you know, oh, just go do your vows, you know. It's like it's just not being, you know, acknowledged. But like what the video was saying, the importance of just simply acknowledging, like you don't even have to say much, but just to acknowledge how your kid is feeling or how your spouse is feeling, just to be able to acknowledge like, oh, you know, so you're feeling this way, you know, and just be able to, like, because when you do that, when you acknowledge, it really like makes the other person feel like, wow, like I'm going through all of this and finally someone gets me, or finally like someone that sees me when I'm going through this. But if I'm over here pouring my heart out to Scarlett and Scarlett's like, all right, so let's suck it up. We got a class. We got to do our next class. I'm going to feel dismissed. I'm going to feel like, well, dang, okay, like my feelings don't matter. But if I like am pouring my heart out to Scarlett about something and she's like, man, sis, you know, that sounds like a really tough time, you know, I'm going to feel like, wow, like I feel like just me saying that, sharing that with Scarlett and Scarlett saying that, it feels like I'm giving her a little bit of my load, you know, whatever it is that I'm carrying, and it lightens how I feel, and I feel a little bit more okay. So I think the acknowledgement piece is always one of my main takeaway from this video. And I think that's something that we can practice like immediately right after this, or, you know, whether it's with your kids or with your spouse, like if they're coming home and they're sharing with you how they feel, how their day was, I want you to, you know, like think about like, are you acknowledging your spouse's experience? Or are you just kind of like, oh yeah, okay, and you're just watching TV, you know? Oh, we hitting it today, aren't we? We hitting it tonight, right? So it's like those are the kind of the things I'm talking about with acknowledgement, and how like this kind of stuff, like whether it's with a spouse or with the kid, your kid is coming home from school and they're telling you about your day, but you're maybe rushing out of the house because you have to go somewhere. But it's like what it would be like if you just take like a minute or two just to like stop what you're doing, look your kid in the eyes, and just be like, gosh, that sounds like a really, really hard day. You know, like, how can I support you? Like, is there something that I can do to help? Like, just that simple interaction right there can really help that other person. And so that's what I feel like with, you know, us growing up and our own experiences. I think that's why most of us, we have all these generations of our communities that like just feel unheard and unseen in our experiences. So just acknowledge it.
Yeah. And here's the thing, when Salah's saying, let me add this piece onto what Salah's saying, when it talks about acknowledging your family members, kids, teens. But part of the reason how you get better at acknowledging someone else's feeling is when you acknowledge your own. A lot of times we end up being dismissive because we dismiss our own stuff. We dismiss our own feelings, our own thoughts, our own ideas. And so we don't practice doing that for ourselves. The likelihood of us doing it with someone else is not very high. So whatever you do in one space, you do in all spaces. So again, just like you acknowledge, you want to practice acknowledging someone else's feelings, I want to challenge you all to start practicing acknowledging your own at first. So this is just a quick summary of the video that we saw. So again, why is it important to talk and share and to talk about and share your feelings? Because research says so. Research says When research reveals when talking about your feelings, again, like I said a little bit earlier, it reduces its intensity and provides relief. Just like Sala said, it is important to feel, one of the greatest feelings that you can ever experience is to feel seen, heard, and acknowledged. Talking about your feelings does not make it worse. Now, we'll put this caveat. It also depends on who you're sharing your feelings with, because you should only share it with those who are emotionally safe. Not with somebody who's going to add fuel to the fire. Let me add that, because there are those people who do that in life, and that's okay. That's not saying you have to get rid of them. Let's just, in regards to what is deeply emotionally sacred to us, maybe let's not share those things with them, and let's find an emotionally safe person. Next is when you identify and talk about your feeling, it helps you, amongst more than anything, and others understand you better. If Sala didn't share with me how she was feeling, I wouldn't understand. She wouldn't understand. And so so I have people have asked me, like, Scar, how are you doing? Or how are you feeling? I said, you know what? I don't know. Let me sit with that. And so I will literally get off the phone with them, look at a feelings wheel, identify all the feelings, and then I start talking about the feeling and the reason I'm experiencing that feeling. Because again, that is the importance, so that you can start identifying what's going on within you. Next is, they don't disappear. I hate to say it, even though you don't talk about it, they don't disappear. It just, what I call it is the emotional closet is what we put it, or this makeshift internal closet. Because what happens is, a lot of times, if we don't have the words, or we don't give a space for whatever we're feeling, whether and particularly the negative feelings, it's a buildup. And we call that in the therapy world compounding. So it just kind of continues to build up. And then, this makeshift closet, emotional closet that you have, is like, what I say is, if you keep stuffing those things in, one day the closet door is not going to close, and then it starts projecting into negative behaviors. Some of those negative behaviors can be, for example, being silent, emotional eating, excessive anger, excessive sleeping, resentment, challenges with self-esteem, depression and anxiety are just some examples of those. So again, this is why it's important to share and talk about your feelings and what's going on. And then lastly, the biggest thing is, oftentimes when we don't share our feelings, we always feel like we're the only ones going through it. Not true. It's important. This is why it's important to share, because it recognizes you are not alone. Because oftentimes we don't say anything because it's like, oh man, they're not going to understand. But you're not even giving the person a chance to try to understand. And then you're just like, oh man, and then you just feel like you have to do it all alone. That's that being silent, which I always want to continue to challenge, because as a person who used to be silent, there were some challenges that I incurred on my own, because one, I just didn't know what to do. And then there were some negative behaviors that I exhibited as well. But again, it was that notion. I was like, nobody's going to understand me. And then I would also say to myself, nobody wants to hear me. That's not true. Somebody's willing to be there for you. Somebody's willing to listen. And again, you are not alone when it comes to talking about your feelings. Celia, I saw you unmuted. Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I just, relative to these amazing points and ideas of just have religion trauma, right? Because a lot of like what I was taught growing up is read your Bible and pray every day and you'll grow, grow, grow. But then at that point, it's like, bro, this ain't working. So is God not answering my calls? Am I not worthy enough? And then that's when you dive deeper into yourself and just hold things back, and then really just try to, again, as you guys mentioned, right? We have a big roof of spirituality that's big in, from my perspective, Samoan culture. So, we always found, let me just, from my perspective, I always found myself just trapped and alone in those things where, well, we just got to suck this up, right? We've got to not talk about it, and then the Lord will provide. So I had a lot of those narratives growing up, and afraid to talk about these things, right? Because they're like, brother, this man he's weak. Yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there, right? Because again, as we're talking about, our Asian and Pacific Islander cultures, religion is, rooted, one of the biggest like pillars for us, although it's our covering. But I just always remember my grandma was just like, well, he ain't listening. Or that was my perspective, right? So just wanted to throw that out there.
No, I love that you say that because, like I said, religion does play a big part of our cultural identity. I think one of the things that I always challenge, when it comes to religion is just that I think one of the things is like, if we're just talking about, like you said, if, for example, if the Lord hears, and sometimes we always want this, sometimes those prayers are answered in the physical sense. For example, like going to a therapist or coming to these classes, and so because again, there's too many things if we want to go throughout the Bible where nobody did anything alone. It was always with the group. It was always with somebody to help to continue the journey of whatever they have been on. So I thank you for sharing that, Celia, because that does happen. And I think that's also part of the reason why Sala and I, we did a presentation for our Samoan pastors. We did 2 of them last year so that we can start breaking, that stigma that we have around talking about mental health within the church setting. So does anybody else want to add anything? Sala, did you want to add anything?
Just amazing conversation, honestly. I'll share a little bit about what's on the slide and then just tag on to what Celia was sharing as well. But I think like just to being able, I love what you said about it, like helping you, like it's important to share your feelings and talk about it with someone that's, is emotionally safe, because it helps you to understand you better. But at the same time, like when you understand yourself better and being able to share how you feel, it doesn't isolate you, because sometimes like isolating yourself can really exacerbate all of these symptoms. So when you feel like you have to just hold everything in, and you're not like airing it out like the video said, you're just those kind of like when you hold all of those things. Remember in the first video when we talked about how your feelings and the brain and everything, when you hold all of those things in, it really manifests in your body as well. So because they're all connected, like everything is connected. When you go to your doctor and say your stress is up, like, and your doctor usually asks you, like when your high blood pressure is up, your doctor is probably going to ask you, like, is there something going on? Are you worried about things? Things like that. Why are they asking that? Because whatever's manifesting and you're experiencing in your physical body is also attached to your feelings and emotions. All of this is connected. So it's important that you share how you feel, because then it really does help to be able to like almost like an outlet to be able to express those things in that way. And it doesn't just stay in your body, because it really does. I mean, it manifests in high blood pressure. It manifests in behavioral things like maybe overeating. It could manifest in, other behavioral things that we're trying to cope with, like drinking or smoking, doing all kinds of drugs. Why? Because we're trying to numb how we feel about things. We're trying to, instead of feeling all of the difficult feelings, we just want to numb it. So I'm going to take this drug. I'm going to take this pill. Instead of really feeling this hurt and this pain, I'm just going to go ahead and just numb myself with whatever different ways that I'm trying to, unhealthy ways that we're trying to cope with things. But if we were to able, like most of like what we do is just like help people like you sit in that uncomfortable feeling. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's painful. Yes, it sucks. But the only way through it is for us to be able to sit through it and process it. And that's the healthy way to be able to get all of those emotions in a more constructive way. But yes, going off of what Celia was saying too, with like spirituality being such a huge part of our community, I absolutely agree. And there's so many different layers to that too, with that being like how people in our community experience this spirituality, because sometimes depending on what revelation that you subscribe to, it's almost like sometimes people will take that word or the Bible like literally, like in a literal sense. But it like what Scarlett said, like, there's also ways that like, if faith without works is dead. So we can't just be, over here praying for, healing in like breathing or whatever, and then I'm gonna walk outside and smoke a cigarette, So it's like, it just contradicts those things, it's like, I'm over here praying for my health, but I'm gonna just go ahead and go outside and smoke a cigarette real quick. So it's like, it's just contradicting to a lot of things, So I think when it comes to spirituality and culture, and in one of our classes, a lot of these things can be a source of protective factor for us. It can be a source of strength, but it can also be, depending on your revelation of it, depending on maybe your experiences, depending on people. I've seen so many hurt in so many places from our culture, from the culture itself, and how it stresses people out, how it just puts people into debt, to like, even with spirituality and Christianity, and how that's a big thing in our culture. So it's like, it's just a matter of like being able to provide that space where we can like talk about those things, but in a safe space. So yeah.
No, I love that. I mean, and that's the part of the thing, like when Sal and I got together, when we started putting this series together, we talked about how can we respectfully address these challenges that are going on within our community, because of course we see our people in our offices, suffering, and it's just like, how do we address it to make it, like I said, so that our community can receive it. Any questions? Are we good? We good? Cool. 34,000. So this was a study that was done by a psychologist, Robert Plutchik, who does the theory of emotions. And in the study, it shows that you may experience up to a combination of 34,000 feelings, which means you can feel more than one feeling at once. And in this study, he broke it down in 27 categories. So when somebody says, I don't know how I'm feeling, I believe you, and you're not alone. Because again, the biggest thing we have to talk about is processing. How do we continue to process and really identify our feelings as well? So it should be in the chat. There is our event summary for tonight, so you all don't have to take notes. But in the event summary, there's also a feelings wheel that we put in there, and there's also another worksheet in there that I'll talk about a little bit. But again, if somebody always says to me, anybody, I don't know how I'm feeling, I'm like, all right, well, let's pull out the feelings wheel. As a person who's been in this field for over a decade, I still use the feelings wheel. It is in my phone. I have a screenshot of it, because I have to utilize the resources that are available to me. And so I found one that works for me, which is the one that we shared in the event summary. So pick one that works for you. All you got to do is Google search one and just type in feelings wheel. And then you get to pick one that, like I said, that works for you. And then lastly, when it comes to talking about, again, regarding feelings in regards to this slide, the combination is like, give yourself grace. Like really, really give yourself grace, because you're learning and you're allowed to not know and mess up. You're truly not, again, I don't expect anybody, even as somebody who's done this therapy stuff for a while, to know their feelings right away off the bat. If they need space, you need space. And you have, again, the biggest thing is you got to give yourself time to figure it out. And there is nothing wrong with figuring it out and sitting with it. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Any comments, any questions before we press forward? Good?
What I would say is also, I mean, it takes time, right? The risk. Because like I said, I mean, Sal and Scarlett and I, we, been in this professional relationship for a while. They actually care about me. And they really asked me, man, how you doing? I was like, man, do they really want to know? Do I want to stress these people out on how I'm actually doing? But I was like, actually, they asked. So let's be honest. But it does take a while, right? This process, because me, I'm your normal male, all good here, 100, one foot in front of the other, one day at a time, yada, yada. But it's a process, just for those folks who might be pulling it up on Facebook Live. We put it on the link there. Takes time.
Yeah, I mean, again, because again, we have to, there's nothing wrong with sitting with and thinking about how you're feeling, how you're doing. Because again, like I said a little bit earlier, how you're doing cannot be summarized in 2 words. I'm good, I'm okay, I'm cool, okay, and what else? there's so much that happens in our life that it just can't be summarized, in those 2 words. And so, for example, even last week when we did our class before we even started, someone asked me, hey, Scar, how are you doing? I go, hold on, let me think about that. I don't even know how I'm doing. Let me sit with that. And so, I said, was able to identify, and I gave myself the space, because again, it goes back to, like I said a little bit earlier in this conversation, is like giving yourself permission to think and sit and to really process, how are you doing, how are you feeling, because it's widely important. Sala, anything you wanted to add?
Oh, I just want to share. So like I saw this video on social media today that's I've seen it a couple times, but I'm sure you guys have seen it. So there's this, I think she's like from that show, Tia and Tamara Mowry, right? So I think she's on one of the talk shows, right? It was like an old video.
Yeah.
But I think she just had her baby or something like that.
Mhm.
And one of the hosts asked her, like, so it was her first time back on a show. And the host asked her, like, oh, so how are you doing? And she said, her response was like, I'm good. And she just kept smiling and looking. And she's like, I'm good. And then you wait for it. And then out of nowhere, she just busted out crying.
Yeah.
She just, because it's sometimes we could be so mechanical in a way where it's like, I'm good, as like a response. But then she just kept, because they're live on the show, it's just like, I'm good. I'm good. And then like, just give it that pause and that moment. And then she just like started crying, but it just goes to show, because it's like, we could be holding on to so much, and sometimes, like Celie said, it just takes a little bit more time. Just, hopefully we're patient enough to be able to like still hold that space for people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and I appreciate Steely for sharing like his experience with Sala and I, because like we really do care. Like anybody who we are, I mean, like, hey, how are you doing? Steely knows I will send him a text, hey man, how you doing? I ain't heard from you. So, and then he'll let me know, because I think that's the thing. It's just like when when people are in your lives, it's just like, you really want to make sure that not only that you provide that space, but also that I get that space provided as well. So I know I can call up Sala and be like, and just, hey, I need to like express what's going on with me, and she'll give me that space, and so that's why I'm saying you have to give yourself permission to share, give yourself permission to identify what's going on. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to identify an emotionally safe person, because again, everybody ain't safe. Let's keep it real. Okay. So layers of feelings. So this is in particularly how I teach my clients about feelings, is that there are the layers of feelings, that there's the surface feeling, then there's the middle, then there's the root feeling. The root feeling in regards to that part is the most important to identify first. Oftentimes that's the one we dismiss the most. So for example, if we're talking about, I'll give an example of the negative feelings and the positive feelings. So the negative feelings, so for example, a surface feeling can be anger. So we often think anger is the initial emotion. Anger is actually a secondary emotion. And if we go to that middle feeling, that middle layer, it's just like, okay, if it's not anger, then what is it I'm feeling in this middle layer? So most likely I was annoyed and frustrated. But if I actually identify the root of it, and if I identify the root of what that anger is, it goes, I was either hurt, dismissed, unheard, unseen, or overlooked. And oftentimes it's important that we identify that root feeling so that it doesn't get to that surface feeling all the time. But this is how I do the work with my clients, and how we can kind of work backwards. And so a lot of times it's just like, okay, if we actually address the root feeling, which is, hey man, that really hurt what you said to me. Can we talk about that? Versus now I'm angry, now I'm hitting stuff. I mean, we'll get into the anger class when I talk about all that stuff. But it's just, so those are an example of the negative parts of feelings, of how we talk about layers of feelings when I teach clients. The positive side of what you can do. So the surface can be excited, happy. That's that surface. The middle layer could be delighted and pleased. Then the root feeling can be secure, seen, heard, loved, or humbled. So those are examples of how you can start identifying the layers of your feelings. Because again, you can experience more than one feeling at one time. So if you're like angry and tired, let's go to, I get it. So if you're like joyful and tired, or happy and annoyed, I mean, they're like I said, like that slide said, it's like you can experience up to a combination of 34,000 feelings. So again, it's okay to sit with that. Any questions, any comments? Sala, did you want to add anything? Good? Cool. All right. Tip time. So we love talking about tips because these are tips you can start using with immediacy. You can start practicing with immediacy as well. And we always love giving tips so that our community can walk away feeling like they're feeling empowered, so they can start doing whatever they feel is best for them. So first thing is identify what makes you feel emotionally safe. So that can be like, for example, tone, how someone talks to you, the language someone uses. Do you need a listening ear? Do you need advice? Do you need encouragement? Do you need softness? Do you need directiveness? Do you need somebody to be assertive? Really identify what makes you feel emotionally safe. So for example, if one of the things that we talked about is if what makes you feel emotionally safe is loved, then think about what are the behaviors that make you feel loved. And that's how you start identifying what your emotional safe space is. So those are just some examples of that. Next, use a feelings wheel. Please use a feelings wheel, because again, use your resources that are available to you. So like I said, in the packet, and for those who are on Facebook, we'll make sure that you get a copy of that as well. I'm pretty sure Celia already put the link. But use the feelings wheel to start identifying your surface, middle, and root feelings. Again, with the root feelings being the most important to identify. Don't ever dismiss those root feelings. So for example, sometimes we feel those root feelings and we're like, maybe that I'm just kind of overthinking it. No, address it. Why? What is the reason I'm feeling that feeling? Next is identify who makes you feel emotionally safe. So for example, again, these are the people who will help you find solutions, not who will add fuel to the fire. We have our about it friends. I get it. Okay? I get it. But we need, in this situation, a lot of times we need people who make us feel emotionally safe. So again, think about the behaviors that make you feel safe and what does that look like in behavior form. So for example, if it's care, how does care show up for me in behavior form? Who is that person that does that, or who are that support system, those people who are able to do that for me? Next is journal your feelings. Journal does not mean you don't have to write, or if you do, let me put it this way. There are different ways that you can journal. The reason why I say journal is because you have to give whatever's going on inside you, positive or negative, a space. We have to give it a space. So you can either write it down, you can either write a passage or like a paragraph, whatever works for you. So for example, like in particular, what I do with journaling, like sometimes I'll write like just regular writing, or I'll write a list, or I'll do a thought web or an idea web. The other things that you can do in regards to journaling, you can use art, however you want to exercise using art, or you can video or audio blog, whatever suits you. Like it really, really is whatever works for you, because my big thing is just like, give it a space somewhere. It's just don't, and that's part of like in regards to your feelings and documenting them. It's just don't let it be nothing. Let it be something that you put it on a space somewhere. And then next, take a break. Sometimes we need a break from our feelings, because sometimes our feelings can be too much. And I am a person who has taken a break in regards to my feelings, because sometimes it's just too much. And like, in particular, how I take a break, if I feel like I'm overwhelmed with whatever I'm feeling, I'll take a nap. Or I will disconnect, in particular, from all electronic devices. So it's however you feel is necessary to take a break. So those are some quick tips that I wanted to share for you in regards. Does anybody have any questions, comments, and Sal, is there anything you wanted to add as well?
No, just that these are, Scarlett and I always try to keep it simple, keep it to where it's something you can, like, you get it right off the bat and you can use it like immediately. So these things, like, and it's also in the event summary that's in the chat and then on the Facebook. Like I said, these are things you can start doing right now. But if you want sort of, if you're somebody that you're here or someone that, just feels like needs to go a little bit more deeper, that's where you can connect them with us. Because then we're able to do a lot of that work and then, or maybe point them to the right direction. But these are the things that you can start doing immediately. And when it comes to how do I even, okay, so you just taught me about feelings and how to express my feelings. How do I do that? This is it right here. You can identify what makes you feel emotionally safe, use a feelings wheel, everything that Scarlett talked about. So I just always appreciate that she breaks it down to where it's so easy for us, for anyone to just immediately use or even, be able to implement it for themselves or just kind of talk through it with someone else.
Absolutely. And so these are literally things I have done with my clients. And so, like, for example, a homework aside, I have given a client is I want you to define what trust looks like for you in behavior form. What is an example that you have of trust? Or it can be, what is an example you have of love and care? How does that, because oftentimes we're not really sitting and thinking about, oh man, I don't really know what makes me feel safe, emotionally safe. So that's where in this proper process we're talking about, sit with that. Again, the big thing is sit with that and identify those things. Again, give yourself permission, give yourself the space to think about actually what it is that I need, because it's a part of self-awareness. Because the one thing about is that when you become more self-aware and who you are and what you need, it is easier to share it with somebody, and it helps you give a space to somebody who may need it as well. So that is the end of tonight's community conversation. Thank you all. Before we go any further, does anybody have any questions? I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Anybody have any questions, any comments? We are here. Utilize us while we are here, people. Celie, did you have anything?
Of City or City from Mulya.
No, go ahead, Patrick. No, after you.
City, let's see workshop next month. It's next month,
Yeah, so this is a culmination of a youth health summit, but I've been doing a lot of work with Sala and Scarlett in general.
Mhm.
So this is our third series we've put together with them. They've been gracious enough to help provide our community with this just so helpful information. And then we have some fall series and some other series that we're going to continue to do with them. But yeah, it's really in partnership with the amazing work that they have. Because those two are very educated. They love some school. So they always out there learning for us and then coming back and teaching us, right?
Yes. Because
Patrick,
yeah, go ahead. I'm listening.
Just to let you know, the next one is on May 21st, and it's on what's underneath your anger. So that's another really good one. What's underneath your anger?
Okay.
So we talk about anger, and we really go into depth, and and so that's also a really good one. So I think Celie will send you the flyer, and it has all the dates of the different conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Patrick, I'll follow up. So I'll send you all the links of our fall and winter or spring series that we did with Sal and Scarlett. And then also, they I'm not their agent or anything, but they do also do this for other communities, right? So they work closely with APCC and some other folks. So
okay.
They have so much useful information.
It looks like for them, the platform. I really, appreciate you guys putting this together, because a need here at Kako community. I'm just talking from experience. Well, I miss Samoa. I came here. I went to the army, left the army, landed here in Washington, and because I'm dealing with an issue that's been going on for the 30+ years in the state of Washington, and that is the lack of academic achievement. But then that, with this type of platform and everything that kind of combines together, why after 30 plus years we still have this like a plague over our community. So we got to figure out how to move that needle, and then this is a great start, because everything, like I said, everything that's been said today is spot on with what I experience every day when I work with these kids. Because when I first started with King County back in the early 90s, no, sorry, back in the early, in the 80s, early Malaysia, oli gang mix mo, and so that was another time in our community in Seattle before I moved here to Brampton, that it was really we needed so much community support, but we just can't find it. But that's why I always praise the work that you guys are doing now, so that way, it's a start trying to move that needle on everything. Because when you mention Pacific Islander, it's either you for Misa or you're only good for sports, nothing else. Yeah. So so I just wanted to share those thoughts with you guys. It's nothing that you don't know already. You already know the story, but now the for me, how can we collaborate with a Taco community to really push that message out there that, hey, because for a long time, my analysis in Taco community, Olympia and all of the other, we know you guys are under the coconut tree, but stay there. Don't even, I mean, truly, that's how they see it. And now, nowadays they talk about equity, they talk about inclusion and diversity. Nothing, So that's why I'm kind of frustrated, but I'm so glad that I ran into to this great start. I think for a new movement, if you will, to really bring to rally the community together to really address our issue. Because bottom line, if we don't have a political voice, if I go for the rest of our lives, So malo fafkailov.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Mele put in the chat, we do have our health summit on the 24th of May too. So I would encourage you, you can bring as many young folks as you want to down there, right? Because we'll have some other leaders and a lot of the speakers actually look like the Islanders, right? So it shows them that there's other futures out there for them. That's why I like taking Sal and Scarlett around with me too. I'm like, look, they saw them on, they doing this. That means you can do it too. So and we are working really closely with DOH around policy and reform, just because these are good conversations to have. But like you said, right, if there's no legislation, if there's no laws put in that really benefit our people, we're just taking baby steps towards improving all of our health indicators and outcomes. But that's why I love this conversation so much, right? It does make you vulnerable. You got to put yourself out there. But Sal and Scarlett are really good at doing it in a gentle way that slowly lets us normalize, right? We got to normalize these things.
Yeah, and it's great to see, Salam and Scarlett, because something new the community don't really think about, that we have these two professional ladies that is taking a completely conversation to a different or a new level, if you will. Because of community, because of that, right? We never hear the parents talk about, I love my so it's a very tough position to be in, growing up in Samoa, because friend Samoa, he tells me all the time, it is so hard for me to tell my kids I love you. Why ngofut king palang, No.
Mhm.
Because my parents never said that to me. I mean, well, that's so sad, huh? But that's how it is, you know? Yeah. But yeah, mano lava le they come fight. Yeah.
Thank
So yes, I have the flyer for the summit, and it's on my calendar for next month. So yeah, great.
Thank you, Pastor. We really appreciate, and everybody who shared. That's again, we've been doing this for a while, and we are going to continue to have these impactful community conversation. So we always love doing this, because even though we've been doing these classes, these community conversations for all, it's always a different conversation. And so with that being said, to close out, so if you're in the Zoom room, please, there is a link to fill out the what is it called?
Survey.
There's a link to fill out the survey, and please fill out that survey, because even if you're in the Facebook chat as well, even if you're rewatching this, that helps us to continue to ask for funding to continue to put on these community conversations free for our communities. So again, if you have any questions, even post after this, like you go home and you say, hey, I finally have a question I want to ask Silence Guard, please send it. Like we are here to answer them. So we can't thank you enough for participating in tonight's community conversation. And please come to the next one. We ask that you come to the next one. And when you do, invite somebody, please invite one person.
Sure.
Bring one
Yeah.
person.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. So you guys have my contact, City?
Yep.
Yeah. Just share
Yep.
it with the group, and
awesome.
For sure. We'll connect offline. And then just to wrap up what Scarlett said, and circling back to Sala, we are going to have our next class May 21st. So it's not a consecutive weeks, but I'll throw that reminder out there. And then again, thank you to Big Oops Radio, DJ Una Heffa. We should have like a mix going on in the background. But he does make us look better on this. So we do appreciate him and Vince allowing us to share this with our community. So thank you everyone who was able to join tonight. We appreciate you all, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Bye, everyone.
So Celia, did you want me to stay on, or
No, we'll connect later. I'll hit
Okay.
I'll hit you later.
yeah,
and
okay,
we'll set up a-
okay, yeah, fast.
Eyes so deep, like the ocean so mysterious. Boy, you make me feel